Last night, we were gifted with a rematch of last year's women's basketball championship. This time, Caitlin Clark and Iowa avenged their loss to LSU 94-87 behind Clark's 41 points, 12 assists, and 7 rebounds. She was a bucket. Here's Clark after the win.
I feel like, it's amazing to be back in the Final Four. It's so hard to get there, especially with this region and how loaded this region was. But, we told ourselves we're the 1 seed for a reason. We've earned this. We deserve to be in these moments. We're prepared for these moments. But I think we came out here and, our second and third quarters, we played really, really good basketball. And LSU's a really good team.
Well, there's not a whole lot of strategy. You got to guard her. Nobody else seems to be able to guard her. We didn't even guard her last year when we beat them. She's just a generational player, and she just makes everybody around her better. What did I say to her? I said, I sure am glad you leaving. I said, girl, you something else. Never seen anything like it.
And it was a record-setting night for Caitlin Clark, including passing Diana Taurasi for the most career three-pointers in NCAA tournament history. She also set the mark for most career three-pointer in Division I history. So when we say she's a bucket, she's an absolute bucket. Stephen A., I'm going to start with you. What do you think that Caitlin Clark proved last night with her performance?
Oh, that she's big time, that she's a superstar, that she's every bit as big time as we all suspected that she was. We sat on this show yesterday, the three of us actually talking about this. And, what I said was, you got to show up. Greatness, Shannon would know a thing or two about it, the three-time Hall of Famer that he is. Greatness is about moments. We understand when you're great, but when you're compared to the great ones, it comes down to moments. Last night was a moment. That was what I kept emphasizing. You're going up against Angel Reese and LSU. Angel Reese that you've never beaten, okay, right, in 5 matchups that you've gone up against her. You've never been able to take her down. You've got a Final Four berth on the line. The residue from losing in the national championship game in lopsided fashion, I might add, is the backdrop of all of this coming into the game. So, yes, we were looking at Iowa, but the world was looking for Caitlin Clark. What are you going to do in this moment? LSU is bigger, more physical. A lot of people assume that they had the better roster, etc. What are you going to be able to do? And what does this girl, Caitlin Clark, do? She goes out and she puts on an absolute show. I mean, bombs away 9 3-pointers, dribbling behind the back, driving into the lane, pinpoint passes, 12 assists, galvanizing the troops and soaking greatness out of them that we didn't even know existed. Right. When you look at Kate Martin and others stepping up and doing what they did, this is what you're looking for when you want to cement your status as a bona fide superstar on your level. And last night, that performance by Caitlin Clark, prime time, national television, to show up against that team in the fashion that she did, and to have a 4-time champion like Kim Mulkey talking about her in the fashion that she talked about her, saying, I'm glad you're leaving, et cetera, it just cements what greatness is supposed to be. Caitlin Clark put it on display last night. She's got to do it again come Final Four, particularly with UConn waiting for her, and then possibly South Carolina, even though we don't want to summarily dismiss NC State. But in the end, the moment arrived, and Caitlin Clark answered the call. It was a spectacular performance on her part. She was sensational. And by the way, Ryan Ruocco was sensational calling that game for him as well. My buddy Ryan Ruocco, a sensational job.
Yeah, for sure.
When Ryan Ruocco said, Caitlin Clark is possessed, I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. At times, she was unconscious. For me, watching that game, it's one of those games where you can't even be mad. Like, you can't even be mad at Caitlin Clark. You can't hate on her. You can't say anything negative about the way she performed. There's not one thing you could take away from that and be like, oh, she was this, or oh, she didn't do that. She checked every single box. That's why Kim Mulkey hugged her so aggressively at the end of the game, because it's like, dang, you did great. I can't stand it, but I love you for it. Like, Kim Mulkey even gave her an aggressive hug when the game is over. That's how you know it was real. You know how you dap somebody up just aggressively because you're like, yeah, that was great. I can't stand you for it, but I can't say anything bad about it. She was poised. She was under control. She manipulated the defense left and right. She got to her spots. And for me, one of the biggest things, Stephen A., you mentioned drawing things out of other teammates that we didn't even know was there. The numbers for Kate Martin and Sydney Falter specifically. Now, Gabby Marshall played great defense. Hannah Stuelke's running the floor. But this right here, pay attention to the top because I know people don't like to read the entire graphic. Kate Martin and Sydney Falter, points per game against top 25 opponents. I know they had games where they balled out, but in the regular season against top 25 opponents, look at the numbers. The way that Caitlin infuses confidence into her teammates and the way now they're able to play on this big stage with that level of confidence, I'm telling you, it's just incredible. You can't be mad at it. You can't take anything negative away from it.
Guys, I think the thing is that what LSU got themselves into trouble is they let Caitlin Clark get to her spots early. You know she likes to drive the ball to the left, and when she drives to the left, she's looking to pull up. I don't know, Andrea, look, you follow the women's game. Why on earth would Kim Mulkey instruct her guys to go under the screen and not fight over the top? I'm not giving Caitlin Clark that kind of space. What she did was confirm what we already knew. There's a reason why she's the all-time leading scorer. There's a reason why she's top 3 in assists. We've never seen an offensive player that has the offensive repertoire. Could somebody possibly score the basketball better? Sure, if you want to say that. Could somebody pass the ball better? If you want to say a true point guard, I'll give you that. But when you combine the two, when you're making a dish and you say for a women's college basketball player who had the offensive repertoire of a Caitlin Clark, I defy you to find me one. There's not one. She checked the boxes we wanted to see. Stephen A., you said it's about moment, and that's what professional sports come down to, moments. And the moment arrived when we needed to see her. Could she do? It's almost reminded me like, Stephen A., I know you'll remember this, the Duke UNLV. You remember the first year in 90, UNLV blew them out.
Blew them out by 30. Blew them out of the building.
Got the rematch. And Krista Leitner and those guys stepped up to the occasion.
Hold on. Go ahead. Hold on. They did have Grant Hill that second go round.
Yes. They had him the first go round. They had him the first go round too.
You know, I mean, I don't think he was there the first go round. Maybe I could be wrong. I don't think he was there the first go round. He came in there as a freshman and you know, ultimately knocked off UNLV. They didn't have him when they got lost by 30. But go ahead.
But when you look at what she was able to do and the fashion in which she was able to do it, and I don't want to take anything from it, but I thought this was a horrible coaching job on Kim Mulkey because you had Kaylee Van Lith, and she was the 3 S's. She's short, she's slow, and she was sick. Flau'jae Johnson, all year long, guarded their best perimeter player. You get into a game of this magnitude, Stephen A., and you put Kaylee Van Lith on her, who's 5'7" against a 6-foot guard. She's sick. They talked about she had to get an IV, so she's been under the weather, and she's slow. Flau'jae Johnson is your best athlete on that side of the ball, and that's not to say that still would have happened. Caitlin Clark still might have got 41. She might have got 51. But I'm going to put my best defense. I'm going to do what I've done to get me there. Flau'jae Johnson is your most athletic young lady on the court. She should have had the assignment because that's the assignment she had all year. But to make a long story short, and I went long. I made a short story long. Caitlin Clark is legit. No more question. Don't say, well, if she don't do this, if she don't do that.
No more question.
You don't score the buckets that she scored in her career. You don't have the assists that she has in her career.
Right.
And you don't take a dormant program and bring it to the national stage like she did without being who and what she is.
Well,
every box, whatever the box you have, Stephen A. for,
right.
She checked it.
She checked it. Make no mistake about it. She deserves all the praise in the world that she's getting right now and then some. And by the way, South Carolina is the big monster. They were undefeated in the regular season last year. They're undefeated this year. The one loss they've got in the last 2 years is to Iowa. It was to Caitlin Clark, who, by the way, against South Carolina last year in the Final Four, dropped 41. 41 on South Carolina, too. So let's remember that as well, because Iowa, based on what we've seen from Caitlin Clark, they could win the national championship right now, which is what Andraya Carter was talking about yesterday, and we get all of that. What I would say to you about this, and Andraya, you're perfectly suitable to answer this better than any of us. I would say this to you. When you talk about Shannon putting Johnson on Caitlin, as I watched Johnson, athleticism, quick, high-end competitor, Big time, no doubt about that. If I'm Mulkey and I expect this game to go down to the wire, I'm thinking I'm going to need Johnson. And if I got her preoccupied with Caitlin Clark early, she might get her in foul trouble. And if she gets in foul trouble, that might neutralize, what she can do for us down the stretch. That's the only thing that made sense to me as to why you wouldn't have Johnson on Caitlin Clark to start off the game. That's the only thing, Andrea.
Right. No, I hear you. But then after Caitlin Clark comes down and goes behind the screen and knocks a three on Haley Van Lith, and then you put last year Poa on her, and that doesn't work either.
Yep.
Like at some point, I think you should have started maybe with Flage just to give her some length and give her a little pressure early, and then switch it up. Then go with Haley Van Lith, then go with last year Poa. But to have Haley Van Lith as the primary defender for the majority of the game, there was a time where I was sitting there and it wasn't even to be dramatic. I was like, this almost feels like self-sabotage. Like, why would you create this matchup? And to me, it's not fair to Haley. Like, anatomically, the height difference is something that is extremely difficult to overcome. And guarding Caitlin Clark, I'm going to put it this way. You are in constant conflict with yourself when you're guarding Caitlin Clark. You don't want her to go right because when she goes right, she gets to the rim and she gets fouled. So you want to force her left, but when she goes left, she can create space and pull up. So you're in constant conflict with yourself. And then even the help side defense is in conflict because when Caitlin gets past the first defender, do you want to flood to Caitlin? Because she's such a great passer. The level of conflict that is internal for defenders guarding Caitlin Clark. I haven't experienced it myself, but I've experienced things similar, and Caitlin Clark takes it to another level because we just talked about how great she is. You're constantly thinking, do I want to force her left? But she likes to shoot when she goes left. Do I want to force her right? She's got that inside out. She can blow by me. It's conflict. And then you put Haley Van Lith in that situation. It's not fair.
Let's simplify it. She's the Steph Curry of women's basketball. Period.
Yeah, 100%.
Just Steph Curry of women's basketball. That says it all.
I want to point out two things. Number one, Andraya has been gassing up Iowa. That's for Iowa fans specifically. I know you've gotten a lot of heat over the course of the season, so just want to point that out. I also want to say Caitlin Clark. She had 41 points, 12 assists last night. It's the second time in NCAA tournament history that a player had 40 or more points plus 10 or more assists. The second time it happened was last year. It was Caitlin Clark in the Elite Eight. What did you think of her performance?
You cannot overstate the greatness that we watched last night because you're looking at a player that had so much scrutiny, so much attention, defensive game plan, pressure, the weight of making her teammates better, and she basically pitched a perfect game. She really did. Every decision she made was the right decision, whether it's scoring or facilitating. I just saw somebody get into a comfort zone on a stage that should represent the greatest pressure they're going to feel. She looked incredibly comfortable. And then her talent took over. Her brain did not interrupt the muscle memory.
Yeah.
And she let her muscle memory take over. It's too often the brain interrupts that. She didn't have that issue last night.
Yeah, it was so good to watch.